Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome at the Meet the Leaders event at 2020. A very special event because normally we would be around the table physically, and now we are in separate rooms, but I hope we have an inspirational conversation nonetheless. And this is an event that is organized by Boertien Vergouwen Overduin in cooperation with ICA. And I have the president of ICA here to introduce himself, Roy Labus.
Well, welcome all. Welcome to ICA, Meet the Leaders. As Leid said, the 2020 edition, the 5th edition, and well, a fully online one. We've never done this before. It's an offline event normally, and we've run to different scenarios. And well, last week we decided to go fully online. I would want to extend a big special thank you to Remco Vergouwen, who's been spending a lot of time and effort in organizing this event, as he's the one who's the main responsible for this one. But I also want to thank the people at ASR, especially the youth department, Nexus. They wanted to host us on location, and they did their utmost best, and even including this media organization who just, does all the hard work for us on the background. But I want to say, without further ado, let's just get onwards with all.
Let me run by the time schedule for you so that you know what to expect. First, we're going to have a conversation about three topics that might be interesting for you. First topics would be the journeys that the leaders have had up until the positions that they're in, and specifically what they have needed to get where they are. And we draw special attention to the Corona period and what they have had to do to manage that. The second topic will be the topic of sustainability and vitality, a topic of great interest to many of the ICA members, as we know that. And all the companies and all the leaders that we have here at the table have their different stories on that subject. So we try and elaborate on that a bit more. And the third round will be around the topic of leadership in the future. And we all are anxious to see what the future will bring. We hope some things will be as they are now, but many things will change as well. And what does that mean for the leadership challenges? After that, for the ICA members, there is a second round. Apart from the 4 leaders that are around in the first conversation, we have 10 more leaders waiting to be in the second round, and in smaller groups with ICA members, they will exchange their stories. So for the first part, this is the live stream, and this is for everyone. The second part is for ICA members only. Well, it's more than time to introduce the leaders to you, because we have a fantastic lineup. If you have any questions you want to pose, you can use the chat, and we will try and fix some questioning in. The leaders, let me introduce them to you. Welcome, you all. Marjolein van Eck, firstly, who has been the CHRO for over almost 2 years now. IBM Benelux, which she calls the third career within the company. So we're very curious what her story will be. Secondly, Marije Hulshoff, Global Director Industry and Building since 2016, who's been working for the magnificent company of Royal Haskoning for more than 8 years now, which is a high score in her resume. Thirdly, Mark van Nuland, who is the country manager of Aon Nederland and CEO of Commercial Risk Solutions, Health Solutions and Affinity at Aon. I don't know what that all means, Mark, but you're about to explain it all to us. And last but not least, we're very happy to welcome Hans van Waaijenburg, who takes up more responsibilities than you would think possible in one lifetime, and is head of board of directors of Capgemini by now, and will tell us all about his journey as well. Without these leaders, this wouldn't be an interesting conversation. So welcome to you all. We've agreed to be on first name basis, so let's get started on the first topic. Marije, may I start with you?
Yes.
Can you share with us what personal quality or qualities have brought you to where you're at right now? And what is it that emerged in your leadership and has proven to be even more valuable in this Corona era?
Well, I'd say let's talk about characteristics. I think I have really an appetite for change. I like to. I have a tendency to go out of my comfort zone, which I think also helped me in accepting opportunities and jobs that were, well, not exactly matching my CV. And that, I think, really helped me over the threshold to take on some really very interesting career steps, which turned out right. And I think that was helped by the fact that I really like to build a team, that I really like to get a bunch of people together that share a focus and a destination, that like to work together. And I really enjoy lifting talent up and providing people with a platform where they can show themselves and create stuff that wasn't there before, that benefits our clients and the organization we work for.
And can you give us an example of one of those things that you have been doing lately?
I think, for example, at the moment we are really working on our commercial way of working, and we found a fantastic team in the organization that really live this and that are so engaging our teams in making this happen. I'm the sponsor across the company for this, so it's very much about supporting the team, encouraging them to develop the tools and the trainings that we need, and also to get all my colleagues behind that initiative to make sure that we have one way of working that is really successful, and where we also really pick up on all the good and creative stuff our professionals come up in COVID times, because it's challenging, but there's also, of course, and I'm sure we'll talk about that today, there's a lot of opportunities there as well, because clients have new questions, they have new issues to deal with. And it's really a joy to see that amongst a challenging situation, or in a challenging situation, you can still find those jewels and pick up on them, and then make sure that we run with it and co-create with our clients to face the new reality.
Thank you, Marije. Now, Hans, your career sounds a bit like a young boy's adventure. You told me that the fact that you do not suffer from the importance disease might have been very important in your career. Can you share with us what qualities you have and what it is that emerges in the period we're in?
Normally, I think that other people can speak better about my qualities as myself, but let me share, which it's my personal view, which has been very important for me to become what I've become today and what I've done in my working life. I am not somebody who is planning a career. So I've been somebody, and I'm also managing a lot by intuition. I'm not. For sure, when I take decisions, we look to things from different sides, but I think many times in your life and in your career, you need to follow your intuition and your feeling. Secondly, everything almost happened by nature. So the moment I did something, I was going on, almost by nature, the next opportunity popped up, and I took them and I went to new things.
Sounds like a bit of an accidental career.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, but that was somewhere of them were long and big accidents. And the final thing is, and that's what's really, I think, made me successful and kept me on the move. I love to get things done with people. to do something together with people and to read something. And that can be a very small group, that can be an extremely big group. I run businesses of 30,000 people. I run businesses with 40 to 50 people, even smaller. What always kept me on the move is get things done with those people, and also on top of the results, get the fun and the pleasure out of that. That's, I think, what helped me a lot.
Thank you, Hans. And can you give an example of what is bringing you most fun these days?
Listen, you should realize that I think I'm the oldest one which you have in your panel today. This is my final job. So I came back in 2018 to Netherlands after building for this company the 18 years before the Society brand again. So I started with a few people and ended with almost 30,000 people. And I had a different expectation how this could end as what's happening today. What happens with COVID-19 gives it a full different dynamic as before. I should have never expected that we should have been taken by surprise by such a big, hopefully, incident. Hopefully it's quickly over. And to give you an idea, in half of March, I needed to bring in 1 week time 10,000 people from a work at the office type of context to a work from home context. And you should all understand that those people needed to be connected to us, but all those people work for hundreds and hundreds of clients in the country. So we also needed to connect them all technically to all those clients. Now, to do that in a week was, to be honest, super surprising how easy that went. And for sure, we are an IT company, but still, I was quite surprised by that. So that learns you that people can do a lot also out of themselves, instead of that you need to manage and control it. And then after that, and that was a very challenging period, it took us 2 to 3 weeks to come into control again. You should imagine, how do you know what everybody's doing? How do you know that everybody's doing the right thing? How do you know that people still work together and deliver to your clients what they need to deliver? That was a very exciting and very special period.
Yes, as I understand it, you managed it for thousands of people, but it was a bit difficult managing it for tonight. So there's some surprises every now and again.
We had a little technology bug, let's say it like that.
And survived it brilliantly. Thank you, Hans. Marjolein, can I ask you? You told me earlier that you enjoy the benefits of being trained in business mathematics and informatics, and that you had a change of career or a focus, actually, from the content to the people-oriented perspective. Can you share the highlights of your choices within your journey and touch on some relevant qualities for you?
Yeah, certainly. And I really resonate with what Hans just described. I often tell my organization as well that I had quite an accidental career. So, we come from, an age where we always said, you need to have an outlook of 5 years. Where do you want to stand 5 years from now and 10 years from now? And if you ask me that question today, I find it really difficult to answer. So indeed, I have a Master of Science. So actually, I should be working for a financial company or of some sort. But I started as a consultant at Accenture first. And then moved over to IBM also to work as a consultant. And then by coincidence, and that's where the accidental comes in, I rolled into HR implementations. And from there, I started to get more interest in the HR processes. And before I knew it, I was working at the headquarters in Armonk, developing the HR strategy for IBM overall. So that was my second career. And quite recently I was asked, I was a bit tired of all the travel back and forth as well, to become the HR leader for IBM Benelux, which is quite interesting because I never imagined myself in this role. I always see myself as a consultant and an expert. But actually, when I reflect on my career at IBM, it really nicely comes together. It's almost like I've come full circle, and I'm using the experiences now more as skill sets, because the HR profession in itself has also evolved. We're no longer that process-oriented organization. We're really strategic partners for the business. So I'm actually back into consulting almost and using my technical background to understand, obviously IBM is a technical company, so I understand professionals. But it's always been more intuitive that this felt right, like the right role at the right time. But it's not, obviously it's conscious decisions, but I've also taken, a lot of decisions on steps that I didn't want to take. So even recently I was offered another role and I consciously said, no, I think I want to stay here. And until when, I don't know, until something else interesting pops up. But that's always how I kind of shaped my career in the past 15 years.
And has that led to things that you've done that you might regret?
Yeah, I never regret anything, to be honest.
It's a principle.
Yeah, well, sometimes you make the wrong choices, but then it's a new experience. That's how I reflect on it. But it takes some time before you look at your career or at your life that way. Obviously, when you're in the moment, it doesn't feel right, doesn't feel good. But always afterwards, when you reflect on it, you realize I didn't want to miss that experience because it actually developed myself as the professional that I am today.
Yeah, great. Thank you. Thank you very much. Mark, last but not least, you said in your talk before this event that you don't consider yourself to be particularly visionary, but I assume that there are many qualities which have brought you to where you're at right now. Can you tell us a bit about your journey and what surfaced more in these Corona times within that package?
Yes, of course, and thank you very much to be here this panel. Very nice, and I listened to the other panel members, and very interesting to listen to their career path. Well, what I always say is that you must be a little lucky too, having a career like we have. And that's maybe being at the right time, at the right moment, or somewhere in the organization, working hard. I think that's also a basic you need to do. Working very hard, and for my particular, I think I've always been very, very curious to business, to our clients, but also business internally. I started with Aon as a risk management consultant, which is, if you're curious, a very nice job because you see a lot of different companies you work for, organizations you work for, which is extremely interesting in my opinion. But the same counts for internally what's happening. I was part of a consultancy department in a broking firm, and also been very curious about the broking, how it works with the insurance companies, the markets internationally. We are a quite a big international firm, and that's really interesting what's happening from the States, how it's governed. So I think that's one of the basics. I've always been, very much interested in a very broad way and to learn every day, and I still do. Working for a very long time now for Aon, 28 years already, and still learning every day from my colleagues, from my clients, and also from my bosses across the ocean. And I think that's the interesting part because it's the organizations and your markets are developing all the time. So you have to adapt to your changing clients' needs, but also, of course, to your environment, what's happening, and that's very interesting to do together with your team.
Can you tell us a bit what you think shaped you most during that career path?
Cool, that's a good question, but
Thank
also
you.
a difficult question. I think there are certain moments in your career, if you look back, that you say, okay, this was a moment where you have made a decision yourself to take a new step. And I'm perfectly in line with the other members, is that I've never planned a career like this, never did it. Always look ahead for 2-3 years. I remember when I was a junior consultant, I dreamed of being a senior consultant and having some team members with me to do some nice projects. And I think that continued in my working life to do it this way. So I can't say that there were very specific moments, but all the time open for learning what's happening around you. I think that shaped me and that formed me as I am now.
And keep on dreaming from the next step.
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah.
Well, thanks all for that brief introduction in your career path. It's time to take on the second subject of sustainability and vitality. Well, it's no secret that Corona clearly is a health issue on surface, but it has also great impact on people's physical conditions, economic conditions, social conditions, and mental conditions, and actually general feelings of well-being. But seems like vitality and sustainability have always been very popular within the ICA generation. So that is why we chose that subject to do this second round with. And Marjolein, may I start with you? As a CHRO, you run the risk of being the owner of the staff's well-being. What is important within IBM in this field of vitality right now, and how do you manage this?
Yeah, I think you're spot on with that first comment, because initially, often with what happened, everybody stares at HR for bringing people home safely, returning people to the office safely, and everything in between. But I would say that IBM has always been very focused on well-being of employees. And obviously with the policy and the people strategy that I'm trying to drive, especially for the younger generation, we started to see that the experiences and the needs of the new generation was very different. So as a corporation, 10 years ago, you wouldn't dare to talk about somebody's mental well-being, but it now is a very key topic of our people strategy. So things have changed. I see that the COVID crisis has really accelerated on some of these topics that we were actually already driving. So in a way, it's also enabled us to accelerate and get the attention of leadership to make this a priority. And on the flip side, also, when I look at leadership, and obviously one of my pillars of my HR strategy is to get leadership moving in a more positive leadership, a more authentic leadership style. I would also say that it's actually enabled us, because things that are very normal to us, showing empathy, being authentic, personal interest, being yourself, these are some of the new themes. You could really see that it became very normal for our leaders to act in that perspective. So we didn't actually need any enablement or education. Everybody started to almost normally behave in that sense. I read a few articles where we talk about the chief empathy officer, and I think that really resonated as well with us. So yes, we did all the enablement and education, but I think we also moved a little bit in waves. So initially you were very reactive. Initially, it was more about well-being, physical well-being of our employees. We moved into a phase where there was a lot of uncertainty around job security. And now we're in a phase where we're really concerned about the mental well-being, engagement overall, and obviously also productivity for the business. So as an example, what we did last week, we called all the leaders and managers together and really started educating them on some of the signals they need to be on the watch for, to just make sure you understand how people are feeling, how they are doing, what are some signals, perhaps obvious, some are less obvious, and what we have available in terms of support for our employees, whether it's physical, mental, or financial well-being. So HR is now moving more into the enablement role, an advisor role, and the leaders really need to drive this, and that's really working. But we, like I said, the Corona situation has really enabled that as well.
Yeah, so thanks Corona for that. Yeah, sometimes that is a boost that you can use very well. Yeah. Going to Mark, Marjolein mentioned just the financial, the mental, and the physical well-being. That is something that is within Aon also in topic. Can you share the most inspiring initiative in either one of these fields, preferably one that you think none of the other companies already has?
Yeah. Well, I should stay humble here, of course. But as you might know, with Aon, we have quite a huge practice advising our clients on the people part, which is on healthcare insurance, pension insurance, that kind of thing. And that developed into a lot of other services, into vitality, well-being, which is extremely important in our servicing for our clients. And of course, we also applied it to our own colleagues, those services. And it's integrated part of looking at physical health, mental health, but also financial health. Because we realize that those three pillars are extremely important to have people happy and also because of that very productive for our clients. So we apply that also to our own firm, to our own almost 3,000 people in the Netherlands. And what we do is we use a lot of technology with it. We use portals in it, but also we have apps which people use. So where you can monitor constantly whether you're fit or not, and all entrances to all kind of help. And maybe a nice example we had yesterday, we had our roadshows yesterday. Normally, of course, we visit all our offices. We couldn't do that. So we did it online, which was a kind of talk show. Very, very nice, really appreciated by people. And of course, you can't listen and see 2 hours in a row, online. So what we did, we had a a health coach, including also mental health in the break. And we did some exercises all together online, which was really great to look at. This was really inspiring, and everybody joined,
I'm tempted to ask you for an example and do something right now.
I thought so. We do that next time.
Okay, that's a promise. Going on to Hans, we've touched on many big issues for which you and/or CAP as a company is building wonderful solutions, minimizing climate change, programs of diversity and inclusion. Also a very important topic, considering sustainability of the organization, your role in this. Can you share a personal experience with us that really changed your perspective on one of those fields?
I want in this to address two things. First, in Netherlands, I think we do a discussion, for example, for diversity by too narrow. We quickly speak about male and female. But I think the diversity subject is much broader. It's about religion, it's about color, it's about gay or non-gay, it's about culture, Western culture, Eastern cultures. So in my view is that we should create safe places for everybody. And I'm strongly convinced that the moment you create a safe place for everybody, everybody wants to join you. And I think that's a much faster solution for the female-male discussion as simply putting targets. You should put so many female in the top. I think you should build it more from bottom up. Then about my personal experience. Half of the Capgemini company, which is roughly, and half of that is 130,000 people, are living in India. So you can imagine that I traveled a lot to India. And if you come in India, for the one who have been there, you see that there is a huge difference between rich and arm. But we all know they have a caste system to a higher caste, lower caste. And even it's fading away, it's still in the country. And what I discovered there is that there are extremely many talented people who have the capabilities, but simply do not have the access or do not have the assets to come into another world. When I came back to the Netherlands, they asked me if I was open to take a seat in the SEG, the Sociaal-Economische Raad, Social Economic Board, which is advising the Dutch government. And if you are in the SER, you discover with every subject which is discussed there, that in every subject there is a digital issue or a digital challenge. So, one of my recent experiences is that I started to contribute in Capgemini, locally, but also globally, to try to help people to get access or to give them an entry or to help them with assets to enter the digital world. And one of the things which really satisfied me enormously and opened also strongly my eyes is that we have done some training programs for refugees. But that was not about the training. These were all quite intelligent, quite good educated people who quickly learn. But they simply never get a platform in Netherlands to show what they can do and to get a real chance. And by taking them internally in our company in an educational trail, which gave them a platform to show what they can do, and once you see that also my company starts to absorb those people, and those people stay and get a decent job and get a decent career and get a decent life. That's something which touched me, which makes me very proud. And I discovered when I came back in Netherlands more to an operational job, that many young people see this as something very important. So I want to do a big call to the audience who is listening to us and ask them all, take your role, take your responsibility and try to help all those people who do not have access or do not have the assets to enter the digital world. Because if you cannot enter the digital world, in this world, the future will be very difficult for you.
Thank you, Hans, for sharing this passionate plea with us. And I feel a connection with Royal Haskoning, whose guiding principle is enhancing society together. So Mariah, maybe I can ask you, you probably attract staff that support that principle wholeheartedly. Can you give us some insight in what challenges this brings about for your leaders or you personally? Oh, you have to turn on your mic.
There I am, huh? Yeah, okay.
There you are.
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's a challenge. It's a promise, and I think it's a reason why a lot of, especially millennials, like to join our company because they're looking for purpose. I think that the story Hans told just now is really inspiring. I think a lot of people want to work at a place where they can contribute more than just do a job and earn a living. Huh? So enhancing society together, as is our motto, is really something that also attracts our staff, but it comes with an obligation, and that's where, of course, the challenge starts. So how do you live up to that? I think you have to do that by being credible, being walk the talk. So, for example, it's not only what we do with our clients, but also within our company. So all our lease cars are electric, full electric, and we all drive electric cars and changed our that system. But you also have to be realistic. I mean, we are a company, so you talk about sustainability with clients, but at the end of the day, the solution that you provide also needs to support business continuity and a profitable business for your clients. And you need to be pragmatic about it. I think one of the things that we do, which I think is a good thing, is we simply said, whatever proposal you do, whatever you offer to a client, there's four questions that you can ask yourself and engage in a conversation with the client with, and which is, I won't go through all of them, but is it future-proof what you do and what you leave behind once you're done? Is there an added value for the client, but also to society in what you do? Does your output does something for all stakeholders involved in a certain project? And also, can you do it with a minimal amount of natural resources and energy? So these four really basic questions that anyone can engage with. And that's what we really start in the organization to talk about, show each other best practices. And you see that staff likes it. People start posting, also on LinkedIn, the examples they have. And so I think that for me is very important you can make all promises, but how do you show that you really keep those promises? And that I think you need to do by also really supporting the creativity and the ambition and the desire to enhance society that is within the company.
Yeah, and can you perhaps give a concrete example of something that has been put forward recently?
Oh, there's so many examples. But for example, we have the energy transition. So if you want to start making buildings more energy sufficient, that's easy when you have one building, because then you can choose out of about 150 measures, and then an expert can tell you what to do. But when you are a big company, or when you are a municipality, you may have 80 or 100 or 300 buildings, and then you have 150 measures. So what do you choose in order to be very efficient, both cost-wise and energy-wise and carbon-wise and what have you, whatever priorities you have? So what we did, we invested a lot in building and modeling a digital solution where you can really very quickly see what is the best intervention for the money I have in terms of energy savings and what have you. So this is the stuff we invest in, and what you see, it's not only just an interesting consultant tool, it really helps people that are willing to engage in energy transition and realize energy efficiency to go that route, because you give them insight and you give them a perspective to act. And I think that's, I really think that's the sort of thing that we can provide and really speed up in the end the energy transition by empowering your clients to make the right choices quickly.
Okay, and that way you serve as decision making for your clients, giving them different scenarios.
Yeah, supporting and also making them make those right decisions at the right time.
Yeah, great example. Thank you very much. In general, this also revolves around leadership, and I think it's time to get to that topic as soon as possible. It has become a bit of a habit to end the Meet the Leaders with the topic leadership of the future. And it's interesting to see what your perspective of those developments are, what leaders should be doing, what they need to develop, or what is already going on and will grow, or what is going on right now and needs to stop. Can I ask, Mark, can I start with you? You described Aon as an American corporate with family trades, and you've seen major changes actually in your time there, especially the last 10 years. What do you feel leaders lead to, or maybe even more need to do that in the future, not only to survive, but also to be able to carry the changes in society and business?
I think there's a lot to say on this, Aleid. And I think a few things here. First of all, if you are a little bit larger firm, as we all are here in the panel, I think you need to deserve a kind of license to operate, and as well as in the outside world, in the external world, as in the internal world. And I think it has to do with, if you look back for 10, 20 years ago, I think the only thing you had to do, and I exaggerate a little bit, of course, is you had to make the revenues, you had to make the profit, and that was mainly the big thing. If you look around these days, this license to operate means that you are in the middle of society. That means, as well as for your clients, the other stakeholders externally, but especially I think also for your people in the firm, that you have to focus on a lot of different areas. You have to be very serious about diversity and inclusion. You have to be very serious about climate change. You have to be very serious relationships with your social partners. I think that's extremely important. Take a look at innovation, for instance. Within Aon, we have Young, which are the younger people, about 400 young people, and they really, we have a kind of board from them, in which we have a lot of dialogues about these topics, how to manage it in the organization. That's one, and it's more a general part of it. If you look within a firm like Aon, a American listed firm, I think in former times a country manager like I am now, 20 years ago, I think it was like a king on his throne. They had everything to say in a country, and that's not the case anymore. And better, much better now. You work together. You work together with the other countries. You work together with the other levels, the EMEA level, the global level, with all the people there. So it means managing. It means influencing those stakeholders too, and to bring it all together, and that's the best for the client. And I think that's quite a complicated organization with a lot of matrix structures in the organization, but you have to manage that, and that means completely different managing than you did in the past, but you only had your own organization, had to manage that part. And maybe Marjolein will recognize it with IBM, not sure whether it works the same, but that's the difference, and that will go on. I mean, Aon is transforming now from a purely insurance broker towards a more professional service firm with a lot of other services, which means that you work together with a lot of talent around the world to bring it to your clients. And that's a completely different way of working, in which you have to adapt your governance of your organization.
Yeah, and you have a very practical way of keeping in contact with the other country managers, don't you?
Yes, I do. Yeah, especially in these days. I mean, normally we come together in an EMEA level every quarter, and on a global level, the top 200 2 times a year. And we couldn't do it now, of course. So I have a call with them, of course, with the EMEA CEOs every month to keep in touch with them, to share our challenges, to share our solutions, and to help each other and to learn from each other. And it works quite well.
It's a one-on-one call, you said.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Well, thanks for sharing, Mark. And let me get to Marjolein. You were already mentioned. And I have a question from the audience also for you. It's about how do you keep your culture intact when everything needs to be done on long distance?
Well, I think you don't, to be honest.
That's very honest.
Well, yeah, just a couple of thoughts, and I think it really interacts with the leadership questions as well. Is when you're no longer in an office, you basically can only see everybody from the head upwards. So there's a lot of nuance that you miss. There's some underlying cultural things that you miss. Leading the Benelux market, you can imagine there are some challenges sometimes between the countries. And that's often mitigated when you can actually see somebody face to face. So moving into a virtual world, we lost a lot of ability to monitor that, to manage that, but also to influence or mitigate once we saw that we were no longer aligning with the corporate culture. And to Mark's point, IBM comes from a world of building computers to a world where we were implementing large mainframes, and then a services company, and now we're into cloud and cognitive. So a lot of transformations happening in the company, which required a massive change from a leadership perspective, but you can imagine it also impacted culture quite significantly. So it doesn't help us that we're now working fully virtual. Yes, the work continues, so there's no productivity loss, there's no engagement loss, but I am concerned about leadership. So we're doing our utmost to connect with our leaders and make sure that they connect with their teams. But you lose 50% of your control. You lose the ability to influence culture because everybody's now in their small subcultures. So it's really hard. So we have all sorts of initiatives, and I think you saw the post from me this morning on LinkedIn as well.
Yes.
We really need to drive more of those efforts to remind people of the corporate culture.
Can you explain for those who haven't seen you on LinkedIn, what is the initiative?
Yeah, I mean, we heard some other examples, but we wanted to think a little bit more out of the box. Now everybody's at home. So we this week we're running a festival, a week-long series of events. I'm sure all large companies are doing that as we speak. But we also said, let's also go to the employees. So obviously there were some challenges there logistically with Corona. But we start on Monday in the Netherlands. We were in Belgium yesterday, today in Luxembourg, tomorrow again in Belgium, and Friday back in the Netherlands. And we are literally visiting employees at home ring the doorbell, and basically hand out awards, have them, share interesting stories, what they've been up to, great client stories. We're going to a business partner, and we're taping all of it, and we're broadcasting it at the end of the day. And you cannot underestimate the immense impact that has for just people to see the colleagues, hear the stories. But that's just a peak moment, and you can probably keep that for, month perhaps, and then you lose it again. So you need to keep doing these initiatives. You need to think more out of the box, but it's a lot harder for sure. So the long answer to your question.
Yeah, but interestingly, good things to share. Thanks a lot. On to Marije. You have had different roles in different number of organizations, and this has confirmed your idea of the relativity of having a position. Can you share some of those insights with the audience, please?
I think that needs a bit of explanation. I think
so too.
I referred to that in, I think like some of us in the call, I was a billable consultant for 15, 16 years, and then I moved into a rather senior position with central government. And that was quite a change. As a consultant, you're as good as your last conversation. And then you enter into a position where you have a formal status, you have enforcement tools, or you have funds that you need to manage and that you can give out. And it's interesting to see how your whole network changes and the way people treat you and engage with you differs because you have that position. And then when you step out of it and you are back to serving clients, then that network and that attention changes as well. I think it's for me. I just mentioned it as a thing to well, you have to see the relativity of that. But I think the most important thing I learned from that, and that's also what I would like to encourage everyone who is listening in the call. It's nice to change perspective, and I think it's also needed with the wicked problems we now have in society, whether it's energy transition, climate resilience, or what have you. No one can do it alone. And for me, it was very valuable to shift perspectives, to look at from a private angle, from a public angle at situation. And I think it helps you to understand what drives the other side, the people around the table that are from different backgrounds, and public and private really have to team up to solve solutions in society. And if you're working in an organization that is politically driven in the end, that's very different than when you're result driven or profit driven, and we do have our commonalities. But I think my key thing on leadership is that, and I think it also comes from the stories that you've been telling, it's important that you have that flexibility and that empathy and being able to shift perspective. And I think that's the only way we can create the solutions that we need. So also in our company, I'm a geographer, by the way, working in an engineering company. You also see there that the transitions you are talking about, we are fully in that as well. It's about digital capabilities, but it's also very much about culture. Like you have all that technology and all that expert, and that is fantastic. But how do you tap into that in a way that you can also communicate with your clients about their real problems and the way technology can help? And I think that's also a way of engaging differently. It's not just about the technical solution only. It's really about what is the problem of the client and what can we offer in order to solve it. So that also demands from our staff a different mindset, and that's also a culture change. And I think we're in that already for quite some time, but I think that from a leadership perspective is one of I would say it's the real transition that we need to make, apart from the digital transition that is upon us from all ends, and the energy transition and the technology that it requires. But the cultural transformation is really key. Yeah.
And I hear you mention the word connecting a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you for your story. Last but not least, Hans, so we had our talk prior to this event, and you envision a physical workplace is being reinvented in this period of time. That is an aspect that we haven't touched on yet. So that's an interesting subject, because as a leader, how do you manage your community when the physical workplace is no longer the central place to reconvene? Your sound is off now, so turn on. Yeah, and it works.
Yeah, okay. Let's translate it to the subject and the audience. I think over a few years we're gonna at least remember 3 things about Corona. First, we're gonna remember that there was an unexpected big health issue. The second thing we're gonna remember is that it was the final push to get the whole world digital. Even the parents of my wife, who are 86, are now fully on digital in everything they do. But the third thing we're going to remember is that this created a huge shift in where we work from. We will not work so much from the office anymore. Many people, at least all the people in my company, will work mostly from home. And that will bring a difference in how people will work, and that will automatically bring a difference in how we're going to manage people. Because the function of an office will move, which is today, the most of it is a working place, will become a meeting place. In the office, you will meet your colleagues, you will meet clients, you will connect to other people. And that's a different use. And the most of the work people gonna do will be from home, which has advantage and disadvantage. It's nice, you do not have to travel anymore. You stay out of the traffic jams in the Netherlands. But you also become somehow a bit on your own. You'll be somehow a little bit more isolated. We come from, if we look back long, a feudal, very hierarchical way of management. In Netherlands, I think we're already quite advanced, because I worked in the job which I just did before in 16 countries. And for example, the structure in India is much more hierarchical as in Netherlands. So I always say from the south to the north, it goes from a hierarchical structure to a more freedom-based structure. And what's then expected of new leadership? Where should you differentiate and where should you be better and develop? It's about to participate with your people, to be one of them. Its transparency will become extremely important because you do not see each other close anymore so much. So the moment you are not transparent and people will discover, you're going to lose commitment and you're going to lose support. Creating direction for people, creating dreams for people, and unite people around the goal and the direction will be very important. But then you need to let it go. You need to trust on the people, give them own responsibility, but still say somehow in control. And that's where the difficulty comes in, because you are on a distance. You need to still measure performance. So we need to figure out objective KPIs where we can still somehow follow and steer about if we are still going in the direction and going to end where we want to be. And one thing I think, and that's maybe the soft part of management, which is also just said before, is that it will be needed that you give real attention to people. Not the professional attention, but also how are you? So what we install now is we say to our management, don't only connect to people at home by Teams or by phone or by Zoom, by asking them if they do their work well, but also phone them, how are you? How is life? What's happening in your family? Because that will be very important to keep the connection with your people and still to have a common company and not a piling up of all type of isolated individuals. And that will bring a huge strains in management. And what surprised me a lot, because we did many surveys over the last months, the people who really have a fundamental need to come back partly to the office and to enjoy that connection is the young people in our company. I expected that the old people should have the need to come back, but it's much less with the older people. The younger people have a huge need to connect to each other, to be with peers, and to be together. That's what I want to share with the audience based on the subject.
Yes, thank you very much, Hans. And it's a great ploy for empathy, actually, as a skill.
Absolutely. And I think it was just said before, also empathy. It will become extremely important.
Yeah.
So there will be no future for no empathic leaders.
Well, okay. So that we know. And time is running out. So I would like to invite you to think of the point of advice, the tip you want to give to the audience. And I will briefly come by all of you. Can I start with you, Mark? Your mic.
Sorry, yeah, I got it. So, well, it's my own motto. Stay curious, stay learning, keep on learning every day again until you stop working.
Thank you. Marjolein?
We talked a lot about leadership, but I often talk about ownership. So in roundtables with our young professionals, I often get asked about, when does this happen, or when will I be tapped on the back for another role? But you need to take control yourself. So also if you see something in your company that you would love to see change, become the change agent. So be true to yourself, but also be true to the company. And you are the future. So take the ownership and be the leader already from where you are on your career ladder.
Thanks a lot, Marjolein. Marije?
Yeah, I'm just musing a little bit on, especially what Hans and Marjolein brought forward on the leadership of the future, but also how to take ownership in the future if we're working from home, because I think that's really going to be a thing. I think also in our company, we're already developing policies for people to work at home for 1 or 2 days, 2 or 3 days a week at least. And of course, it's about being curious, but I would also really say the shifting perspective and the empathy part, I think, is really important. And also in Corona times, I would really encourage everyone. It's not that big. It's also really about your own colleagues. It's also what I tell people. You can take one colleague that you really like and go for a walk. You can have small meetings and you can visit each other's safety and also reach out to each other. One of the things I find that in COVID really also is that in part it inspires empathy because you see the kids running around the room, you see how people live. So I think that's a very positive one, that it's sort of natural to get more engaged in conversations with your staff. But to sum up, please, I would really encourage everyone to engage with one another.
Thank you, Marije. Hans, famous last words for you.
Je moet kunnen wat je wilt en willen wat je kunt. You need to be capable to do what you want to do. And you need to want to do where you are capable for. So do where you are good at and what you like to do. That's my saying.
And that will make you
me all my career and help me a lot.
And that has been quite some time. That brings us to 8 o'clock, and it leaves for me to say a big thank you to our leaders, all 4 of you, Marije, Marjolein, Hans, Mark. Thank you very much for sharing your experiences. You will join the breakout rooms in round 2 via MS Teams, so we do that differently as well. And there will be more room for questioning and answering from the ICA professionals. I wish you lots of fun and a very nice evening. And let me turn to you as the viewers of this live stream. Thanks a lot for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. Hope you were a bit inspired of all the examples and all the different styles that were mentioned. And I hope to see you at some other event. Good night.
Bye-bye. Good luck.
Bye.